Back with us on the conversation in Jamaica now, Justice Minister Delroy opened the debate on the amended National Identification and Registration Act, most commonly referred to as the NIDS Bill, in the Parliament on Tuesday. Minister Chuck explained that the bill, which seeks to implement a national identification system for all Jamaicans, also proposes a database that will be accessible by the police. The controversial legislation is back on the Parliament's agenda after being struck down by the Constitutional Court in 2019, this following a legal challenge mounted by the opposition PNP.
Madam Speaker, this bill is a living representation of the views of the Jamaican people. It embodies the recommendations of a joint select committee on the previous iteration of this legislation. These recommendations were made as a result of an intensive round of contributions from concerned citizens of Jamaica, members of the diaspora, and various stakeholder interest groups. Madam Speaker, this bill is one of the most responsive pieces of legislation ever put to this Honourable House. We held 32 meetings of the Joint Select Committee. Madam Speaker, the legislative framework for the National Identification System, the NIDS, has been strengthened and improved in order to A, recognize and protect the right to privacy of an enrolled individual, particularly as it relates to the protection of an individual's data, identity information. Secondly, strengthen the organizational and governance structure of the authority. Ensure that the penalties reflect the gravity of the offences created under the legislation. D, strengthen the independent oversight of the authority. E, ensure that a comprehensive enabling structure exists to facilitate the implementation of the NIDS. And F, most importantly, the first legislation to require the encryption of personal information and compliance with international best practices for information security. Madam Speaker, the NERA 2021 comprises 7 parts, 4 schedules, and 38 clauses. I start with Part 1, the preliminary, which outlines the matters within the legislative framework of the bill. Clause 1 sets out the short title and commencement. Of note, Madam Speaker, is that the bill provides that different sections of the legislation may be put into operation at different times. This, Madam Speaker, will facilitate a streamlined, strategic and practical implementation of the NIDS in line with the Data Protection Act. Clause 2, Madam Speaker, outlines the interpretation of different items which are used throughout the legislation. It will allow me, Madam Speaker, to highlight the following definitions within the bill. The appeal tribunal means the appeal established under Section 26. The authentication means the process for the authentication of the national identification number or by which the national identification number is proved. Authority means the National Identification and Registration Authority established under Section 5. Civil registration means the inclusion of information in, firstly, a civil status register under the Registration, Births and Deaths Act. Secondly, the Adopted Children Register under the Children's Adoption Act. Thirdly, another register required to be kept by the Registrar General under any other law. Civil registration databases, Madam Speaker, means the databases established pursuant to Section 9(1)(b). Enrolled individual means an individual whose identity information is in the National Identification Databases. Enrollment means the collection of identity information for storage in the National Identification Databases. Identity information means the biographic, biometric, or numerical information that may be collected under Section 11 in relation to any individual. Information includes documents or any other information in whatever form, whether electronic or otherwise. Inspectorate means the National Identification and Registration Inspectorate established by Section 27. National databases means the databases established under Section 9(1). National Identification Card, or card generally will be referred to as the NIC, means a card issued under Section 16. National Identification Databases means the databases in which all the identity information collected under this Act by the authority is stored. National Identification Number means a National Identification Number, the NIN, assigned under Section 15. Madam Speaker, I pause here to note that the proposal, as per the recommendations of the public, is for the utilization of the registration number assigned to an individual under the Registration Administration Act, commonly called the Tax Registration Number, the TRN, as the NIN. I will refer to it as the registration number throughout my presentation, which is keeping with the provisions of the bill. I think, Madam Speaker, it is important to note, because in the debate at the Joint Select Committee, the members of the public wondered, why are we using other numbers? You have the tax registration number, you use it for your driver's license, you have passport number, you have other numbers. Why don't we just have one number? And after deliberations, Madam Speaker, we decided that the tax registration number should be adopted for the NIN, that is the National Identification Number. And I think this will be generally accepted, because we have in excess of 1.5 million Jamaicans who have a TRN, and that same number will be used for the National Identification Number, the NIN. So it will be easy, Madam Speaker, to move forward with that NIN. The National Identification System, Madam Speaker, established it under the Section 9. We also have the NIN, the NIC, which is the card itself, and then the processes, automated retrieval and storage, procedures, plans, networks, services, measures, and interconnected and other associated elements for the enrollment of individuals, the verification of their identity, and the authentication of national identification numbers and national identification cards. Verification, Madam Speaker, means the process by which the authority establishes the accuracy of identity information. Madam Speaker, Clause 3 indicates the objects of the Act. These objects are quite simple, but serve to effectively indicate what is intended to be achieved. The Act seeks to provide for A, a system of national identification, B, the administration of the civil registration system in conformity with the laws applicable to civil registration, the protection of identity information and other personal data. Clause 4, Madam Speaker, states the classes of people who are eligible to be enrolled in the NIDS being A, all citizens of Jamaica, and B, individuals ordinarily resident in Jamaica. To be ordinarily resident in Jamaica, a person having a grant of leave to remain in Jamaica has resided in Jamaica for a period of at least 6 months prior to the application for enrollment in the NIDS. Individuals who have a grant of leave to be in Jamaica to study will also be considered ordinarily resident in Jamaica. I move to Part 2, Madam Speaker, the National Identification and Registration Authority. Part 2, Madam Speaker, provides for the administrative details of the NIDS. Clause 5 establishes the National Identification and Registration Authority as the body corporate which will administer the NIDS. This clause, Madam Speaker, also outlines the functions of the authority. The authority will be responsible for high-level strategic functions such as the administration of the NIDS, the development of policies and procedures to operationalize the NIDS, development of appropriate systems and protocols for the security, secrecy, and necessary safeguards of information in the databases, ensure compliance with the NERA legislation and other applicable legislation, including the Data Protection Act, Public Bodies Management and Accountability, and the Financial Administration and Audit Act. Keep the Minister and Permanent Secretary advised and informed. The authority, Madam Speaker, will also assume the administration of the civil registration system in Jamaica. This is in keeping with best practices of civil registration and identification, where these areas are undertaken under one umbrella, as each area serves to strengthen the other area and facilitate the achievement of the respective functions. The Registrar General's Department will cease to exist as an executive agency. There will now be an office created within the authority to be known as the Office of the Registrar General. This office, under the control of the authority, will be responsible for the current roles, responsibilities, tasks, and duties of the Registrar General, including those under the Registration, Birth and Deaths Act, Children Adoption of Act, Marriage Act, Muslim Marriage Act, Hindu Marriage Act.
That's Delroy Chuck, the Minister of Justice in Jamaica. He's also the Member of Parliament for North East St. Andrew. Back with more from Jamaica's Parliament after these.